Yo guys, it's Vin, and in today's video I'm going to be giving you a few tips to help you improve your grounded movement. Now, there are a number of great movement guides on YouTube, and a lot of them I actually referenced in the making of this video. However, many of them are very general and just teach you how to move. In this video, I'm going to attempt to teach you not only the inputs, but also where, when, and how to use them to accomplish basically the whole point of Brawlhalla, which is how to kill your opponent. And this video will focus primarily on grounded movement options because it was made directly in response to a player saying that his floaty tendencies was preventing him from reaching diamond. And just like my blasters guide, which I would highly recommend you check out after this video, we're gonna start by watching a few clips. The first one is from Sandstorm vs Simple at BCX 2018, and the last two are from Java vs Sandstorm in the recent Winter Championship. And once you're done watching the actual guide, I want you to rewind back to those original 3 clips and see how the pros actually use the things I talk about in the video. Alright guys, I talked way too much for one intro. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the guide, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!
Simple takes the lead.
And I'm so happy that he finally whipped out that neutral sig. We hadn't seen it in the first game, and I've seen Sandstorm jumping a lot. Simple was like, all right, I'm going to save this option and use it for when I really need it. Not quite getting the KO there, but now Sandstorm has to be wary of that anti-air option. Oh, recovery from Sandstorm, forcing Simple to the corner again. A beautiful down air, forcing him off once again, almost with another read. Simple, another chance to get back on stage, and Sandstorm.
Oh, man.
He's definitely looking for it. He can't afford to take, whoa, just to the outside. Java had the read on the dodge, but not the location.
Neutral sig catches that spot dodge in place. Well done by Java.
He charged that a little bit
reads.
too.
Dodges through the weapon throw. Sandstorm doesn't want to risk anything against Hammer off stage. Nair hits, and Sandstorm is bleeding out here.
A lot more thought in how he starts these engagements.
Java makes it back, doesn't get the stomp.
Alright guys, movement time baby, let's go. So the first tip I have is something that's extremely simple, but I guarantee it'll help literally everybody watching this video, and that's mastering quick turns. Now, what is a quick turn? A quick turn is when, well, you quickly turn in the direction that you're going to do something before actually doing the input. Now this is extremely important because a lot of times in Brawlhalla you'll see players like kind of in neutral like this, shimmying in their place, and the reason this is so that they're ready to move in any direction that they can. Let's say this Bodvar aggresses me, I can simply dash jump away like this. Or if the Bodvar is standing still and I want to aggress him, I can simply dash forward like this. However, if you rush your movements too much, let's say you do a dash and without looking in the direction first, you get something that looks like this. Now, I know you can't tell because you can't see my inputs, but I just tried to do a dash sidelight. That would look like this. That would catch the Bodvar right there. However, since I was facing backwards, if I try to do a sidelight at the same time as my dash, I just get a backdash, and I'm completely in a vulnerable position to be punished. Now, you can do a backdash into sidelight, however, this is ever so slightly slower than a dash sidelight because you can't input them at the same exact time, and realistically you should always be inputting your sidelight and the dash at the same time rather than waiting, because this kind of off-puts the distance a little bit, and of course it is a little bit slower. Another scenario that really messes you over if you don't master your quick turns is throwing your weapon. If I want to aggress this Bodvar from really far away, I can just simply throw my weapon at him. However, if I'm like this and I accidentally do this, I throw my weapon in the opposite direction, which leaves me in the same position as a messed up dash sidelight without the quick turn. I'm right in front of him, completely vulnerable for a punish. Now, my solution to you is actually really simple. If you're just dancing in place like this, simply make sure that you're holding in the direction before you actually input a dash or any type of movement. Because if you're going like this, that's not optimal. It's amazing how much damage you can save yourself by simply making sure you're holding in a direction before inputting a dash. And it's amazing because this is something that doesn't take a lot of practice either. This is really just, you spend one day in training mode working on this and you just keep it in the back of your head in all your matches, and before you know it, you'll never be misinputting something like that ever again. Alright guys, my second tip is to dash jump fast fall. Now, I'm sure like pretty much a lot of people watching this video are going to know what this is and how to use it. However, there is going to be some advanced twists I have on dash jump fast falls that I'm going to have at the end of the tip, so stick around for that even if you know how to do this already. Now, the fastest way to move in Brawlhalla is not walking. it's not sprinting, and it's certainly not spamming dash. The fastest way to move around the stage is to simply dash jump fastfall like this. The way you do a dash jump fastfall is you hold forward and do a dash jump, and then start to hold down at the apex of your jump, like this. You'll fall to the ground pretty fast, and doing this repeatedly and stringing them together allows you to move super, super quickly. And a lot of times you're not going to be stringing together a bunch of dash jump fastfalls to get somewhere. However, if you know your opponent is going to like dodge outwards or something, you can do a dash jump fastfall to cover this distance and then continue your string. One situation that you probably will be using a lot of dash jump fastfalls is if your opponent tries to go under the stage to avoid your Edgeguard. If they do that, you can just simply chase them like this really quickly and set up another Edgeguard before they even get around. And a lot of times, if you're quick enough, and well, if your opponent is slow enough, you'll probably be able to catch them on their way up. So if they do a recovery like this, you can simply dash jump across the stage. Before they touch the wall, you can dive kick and clash a recovery, and then you'll be able to get a free gimp. Another thing with dash jumps and dash jump fastfalls is you'll be able to avoid attacks and actually set up your own attacks. One really simple one is if your opponent is using a grounded attack like this, then I can simply, if I get my axe, I can simply dash jump over and then do a little string like that. One way to set up your own actions is if you know your opponent is going to jump, you can just do a dash jump Sair like that on literally any weapon, or if you know they're going to stay grounded, you can go like this, dash jump fastfall Sair. This is especially effective on any Lance legend. Like let's say I grab Roland over here, I can do a dash jump Sair, and a lot of people know about this on Lance. You can even do a reverse like this if you go past them. Another really great way to use dash jumps to kill is you can do dash jump GC sigs super easily. Let's say you have a really long horizontal and low hitting side signature. You can do dash jump GC side sig like that. It's probably better if you do it a little bit higher so you can go over some grounded options like hammer D-light or bow D-light. Like this, just catch the top of their head. That is really good for killing them. Also, you can, if you mix them with dash dances, dodge backs, also, you can kind of like go behind them and reverse them like that if you want to regain stage control. You can do a lot of things with this. It's super versatile and really effective. Some other good signatures for this off the top of my head are Kaya bow side sig, and even the Taros signatures, maybe less Taros axe side sig, but Taros hammer side sig is really good for this. And now when you start abusing these dash jump fastfall moves a lot of times your opponent will adapt to you and they'll try to endlight you to wake up or do anything to try and hit you out of the dash jump fastfall, and it would probably look something like this. However, if you know your opponent is going to try and endlight you to wake you up out of the dash jump fastfall, you can do a dash jump forward, dodge back, and then a falling Sair like that. And this is especially effective on heavy weapons because your Sairs pack so much of a punch. Alright guys, I have one closing note on this tip, and that's to not use it when you're too close to your opponent, because if your opponent is throwing out an attack like sword endlight, a lot of times they'll probably just do it on reaction and you'll accidentally dodge back into their attack, especially if their move has a lot of active frames. My counter to this is probably to just make sure you're a fair distance away from them when you start to do this. Combined with dash dancing, which we'll talk about in a second, this gets really confusing for your opponents, and you'll probably see a lot of pros like Sandstorm using these kinds of movements a lot. Dash jumps and then eventually dash jump dodge backs. Alright guys, my third tip is to dash spot dodge a lot. Now if you watched my blasters guide, you probably already know what this is, but if you haven't, I'll briefly go over it. It's really you just dash, let go of your movement keys, and then do a quick spot dodge, which allows you to slide across the ground. And because you're on the ground when you do this dodge, you get the grounded dodge timer, meaning that you get your dodge back within 1 second afterwards, which is really good. Now, as I said in the blasters guide, dash spot dodging is extremely good for approaching your opponents, especially people who love to try and hit you on reaction. Let's say this Bodvar is the type to try and hit me whenever chance he can get. Like, let's say I'm fooling around his distance and he immediately tries to wake me up with an endlight. This is the type of player where I can literally just run at him and then do a dash spot dodge like that to phase right through him. However, not every player is going to be like this. A lot of players are pretty conservative with their moves, especially in higher ranks. So if they notice you do this dash spot dodge a lot, they won't try to endlight on wake up. And instead, a lot of people will actually spot dodge the same moment that you do. And this is kind of awkward because let's say I do a dash spot dodge and this Bodvar spot dodges at the exact same time that I do. This is weird because neither of us are in advantage state because both of us have equal opportunity to hit each other as we're coming out of recovery frames from the dodge. Now, this is when I would say, Whenever you mess up a dash spot dodge like this and you're actually in a disadvantage or neutral state, you should probably just jump out of the way, because most people's first reaction is to spot dodge, right? And then they see you here, so they try to turn around and end light you. This is where I would say jump and then do any type of falling move like that. And this principle pretty much applies to any time you miss a dash spot dodge. Let's say my opponent is really far away from me and I do a dash spot dodge and I end up right in front of him. It's best to try to not chase him. I mean, a lot of times you can get a cheap end light off, but again, if at higher ranks, if your opponent is adapting to you and they realize that you're missing this dash spot dodge, the universal rule is to pretty much jump out of it and then try to fall back on them again. And if your opponent is super smart and they adapt to you trying to fall on top of them after missing a dash spot dodge, my advice to you is to really just stop dash spot dodging. Because dash spot dodge is really only another tool you should add to your arsenal. This isn't the only way to approach. Again, Brawlhalla is a game about punishing, not attacking, so it's better if you can make your opponent to whiff first. There are many ways to bait out your opponent's attack, and not all of them include just running away and playing passive, because, I mean, yeah, that's hella boring. So just know dash spot dodging shouldn't be your only approach option. You can use platforms to approach people. You can just play footsies, which is, I mean, pretty much the standard option, just float around them. You can kind of dash back and forth. Again, we'll talk about this all in a second, but dash spot dodging should not be a crutch. It should just be another tool to add to your arsenal. If you see your opponent is falling for it a lot, just do it, it's really good. If your opponent has a long zoning weapon like spear or bow that has some super long range options to stuff you out, you can read that, dash dodge through them, and do a quick end light for quick damage. And yeah, even if you miss a dash spot dodge, pretty much just run away and reset to neutral. There's no reason to try and chase them when you've already burned your dodge, because remember, even if you're on the grounded dodge timer, you're still without a dodge for a split second, meaning that people can get some low frame follow-ups on you, like side light D light on spear or side light D light on bow. Alright guys, my fourth tip is dash dancing. Now, I'm sure a lot of you already know about dash dancing, but there's a lot of people I see in experimental and sometimes ranked, even in higher ranks, still dash dancing for no reason. So before we go over why you dash dance, I want to go over why you don't dash dance. The place where you don't want to do this technique is when you're right in front of them. There is absolutely no point in me doing repeated dash dances like this, especially going more than like that. Any more than 1 or 2 times is just excessive. It's maybe good for tilting your opponent, but if you're right in front of them, like if you're too close to them, dash dancing does nothing for you. You're just getting right up to hit them. You could just hit them right here, right? But you don't, and instead you dash dance away from them, and now your opponent has more space to set up an attack on you. Another place where you shouldn't do dash dancing is when you just start the match. I see a lot of people start the match and then they just do a bunch of dash dances and then they dash jump nair, or even worse, they dash and then they use their dodge and they try to do that. All that extra steps is really not necessary, because if you think about it, the weapon spawns here. If you dash forward, you're already right next to the weapon, so you just jump up and grab it, but then you dash back for some reason. Like, I don't understand. A lot of people just like want to fill in space, like fill time with moves, and although that's not really the worst mentality, like, I mean, this is not the most terrible thing you could possibly do. It's really not as optimal as just, like, posting up here and grabbing the weapon. This is something you hear Remmy talk about a lot. On his YouTube channel, he posts all of his coaching sessions. I'll put the most recent one in the description. Pretty much everyone he coaches does this little dash dance thing at the beginning. And he always says if you want to do something, you dash forward and grab the weapon. If the weapon spawns higher up, you do a recovery or something. You try to hit them out of the weapon, but you don't ever do this. Heck, you can even just stand here at the start of the match and then start going for the weapon. You can really do anything as long as you're not wasting time with all these filler moves that literally don't do anything for you. Following from the last tip, one of the main ways you should use a dash dance is to bait out your opponent's attack. If you know your opponent is the type to end light on reaction, like I said before, you can dash jump, dodge back, excuse me, you can dash right through them, or you can just do a simple dash forward, dash back. If your opponent is one of those really trigger happy people who love to attack when they're right in front of you, when you're right in front of them, dash forward, dash back, they end light, and then now you can go back in with a dash side light or literally anything, whatever is most optimal on your weapon. And one caveat to know is that if your opponent is catching onto this, like let's say they realize realize that, oh, you're just gonna wait for them to miss an attack, then you go back in. Let's say you do a dash forward, dash back, and on the dash forward, your opponent end lights you right here. Your opponent is probably gonna be doing the same thing next time, and this is where you can combine it with the last tip and do a dash spot dodge. So you can kind of see where I'm going with this. If you combine all of these moves and you're like, let's say you're really far away from the boat bar and you're dash dancing, I dash forward, dash back, he misses, I go in with a side light. He adapts to that, I just dodge right through him and set up an end light. And when that fails, a lot of times your opponent will just try to avoid grounded encounters with you in the first place, and this is where you can dash jump on top of them and do things like that. And again, mix in the dodge backwards, excuse me, I keep messing that up, it's kind of like a tongue twister, mixed in the dodge back and even confuse them even more. Generally, a good place to use dash dodges is where you know your opponent can't punish you. I mean, if you've watched any of Kosalix's gameplay, you notice he does a lot of dash dances, and he only does it when he's outside of distance, so he's not really able to be punished. Even though it's really tempting because people know that you're locked in when you do a dash, you're locked into this movement, and it's super tempting to punish, so people actually try to punish it, and that's what he wants. He wants to be able to back dash with Lance, set up a side light nair, or dash spot dodge forward and turn around, do an end light like that or something, anything, whatever is optimal on your weapon. One more really good place to use dash dancing is on the edge. You can kind of slip people on the edge like this, and it's really, really annoying for one, because your opponent is going to try and time it, right? They're going to try to time it to the point where you're off the ledge for a split second so they can hit you. And that's kind of what you want. A lot of times people will actually try to use their recovery. And if you're like, let's say on Axe, for example, you do a dash dance like that quickly, and then you do a quick end light, a lot of times people will try to recover into you, and that'll clash their recovery. And if they're on red, it will send them all the way out here, and they'll just fall to their death. And now there is one really niche use for dash dancing, is if you're dash dancing on the ledge like this, and you know your opponent is in kill percent, and they're going to be coming after you, you can do a quick dash off the ledge into a side movement like that to get a side air, if you saw that. I'm not really used to this because I don't use it too much, but I know people who do use this and they use it very effectively, especially on weapons like Axe or Hammer or even Lance that have really long horizontal side airs. So when their opponent is in kill percent, they dash dance on the ledge like that, they go off, they come back with a side air, and that covers so much area. And even if you miss the side air input, a lot of times you're fine because you're getting a side light input anyway, especially if you're on a weapon like Axe. You get a free side light nair even if you mess up this Sair input, so it doesn't really matter anyway. Alright guys, my fifth tip is X-pivoting signatures. Now if you don't know what an X-pivot is, it's pretty much when you just do a dash or dash jump in a direction, quickly turn around, and then do a move that is able to be X-pivoted, and you get this little momentum swing in the opposite direction, which allows you to do variations on moves. Like this is a normal dare, and then this is an X-pivot dare. It's a little bit different. Some other moves that are able to be X-pivoted are Blaster Nair, Blaster Dare, Gauntlet Dare, anything like that. And a lot of the movement guides on YouTube go over X-pivoting, but they really only go over X-pivoting with light attacks. In this part of the video, I want to go over mainly X-pivoting with signatures because this is something I think is extremely valuable but extremely underrated. A lot of people don't know this, but an X-pivot signature goes the same distance as a normal signature. So let's say I'm standing here and I do this side sig. I land about here. Let's say I do the same in the side sig in the same area, but instead of getting an X pivot, I literally land in the same place. Actually, I might have landed even further, depending on where I was standing. I don't know, but pretty much know that this is the same. You're basically traveling the same distance, whether you do an X pivot or a normal sig. This is really important because you can actually use it to bait people super hard in kill percents. If you've been doing raw side signatures the whole match to kill people, by the last stock, if your opponent has at least half of brain, they're probably not going to be getting hit by this. However, if you do an X-pivot signature, this little jittery movement here that I get from this extra momentum can really catch your opponent off guard. Let's say you're just in neutral, you do something like a dash dance, right, and your opponent is not reacting to it. Something I like to do a lot is literally walk towards them, start walking back, and then do an X-pivot. Because it's almost like the dash dance, that like it's a bait. I want them to attack me. However, if they're not biting onto that dash dance bait, sometimes you need to slow it down for them a little bit, make it a little more obvious. This is also really good for baiting people with aerial signatures. Ragnir, Axe, and Sig covers a huge amount of area that actually can't normally be covered with any Axe light attacks. Like you can't cover right above you from the ground. And this is extremely good because if someone's falling from the stage, you can just straight N-sig them to kill them, especially because the sig has so much force. However, if you're doing this the whole match, just dash N-sigging, a lot of people won't fall for it. Something I like to do is when someone's coming back towards the stage, they're probably going to be trying to avoid my N-sig, so they're going to be walking in the opposite direction that I am. So let's say this Bodvar is coming back to the stage from here, I walk forward, I walk back a little bit, and I do a quick N-sig. This is almost unreactable, and I'm actually going to put a clip of me doing this perfectly on screen now. Yep, side light stare is true. N-sig into N-light, cover that. Again, yep, X-pivot is good for catching him off guard. Alright guys, my sixth and final tip of the video is platform canceling. Now I know this really isn't a grounded movement option, but I still feel like it fit into the theme of the video because you can use it to approach people and set up your own actions. Anyway, we'll get all into it in a second. The first most basic use of platform canceling is continuing your strings. Let's say I do a sidelight nair on Axe, I can do a platform cancel delay for only 2 frames, which is unjumpable, and if I have 6 decks or higher, I can actually do that for 1 frame, which is really good because especially in lower ranks and even in like high plat, I find people don't dodge this at the beginning of the match if they don't know I'm going to go for it, because it's only 1 frame, so you're going to need to be really precise to dodge that. I also made a video about hammer stomp canceling if you have 6 decks or higher. You can check that out after this video is over, although I will say it is slightly more niche and you're not going to be doing that every match. That's a completely different topic. Let's get on to a more universal use of platform canceling, which is getting your weapon. Now, at the start of the match, everyone's objective is to try and get the weapon, of course. And if they see you go for the weapon first, a lot of times your opponent will wait a second and then try to hit you out of it. A great way to avoid getting hit at the start of the match and actually hit your opponent back is by platform canceling. This is a technique that Boomy uses a lot, and when someone sees you go for the platform, a lot of times they'll think, oh, they're slightly farther away from the weapon than I am, especially if like I'm right here, and so it's more advantageous for me to try and grab the weapon from them because they're farther away from it. However, you can actually fool them and do a platform cancel jump nair to try and hit them out of the weapon when they're trying to get it. And even if you miss this nair, it's kind of fine because you can just reset to neutral. A lot of people don't have quick enough reaction speeds to react to this. So especially if you're on a map like Enigma, you can literally just miss this nair and then jump to the other platforms and just kind of wait even if you don't get that weapon. And not to mention that this is actually one of the easiest ways to use a platform cancel. If you do a jump and then do a dash, basically almost at the apex of your jump, you'll get a perfect dash cancel every single time. Of course, I'm messing it up now. And this further puts that image in your opponent's mind that, oh, you're being slower than them, so they're gonna want to get the weapon because look, you're kind of just floating in the air for this little time here. So this is quick enough for a lot of people to react to it and be like, oh, he's just floating there, I'm gonna go get the weapon. Then you do a surprise dash cancel into a jump nair, get the weapon, and then string them to hell. Now, if you don't have time to wait for this full apex of a jump to be able to get this dash cancel, a lot of times it can be very difficult to get it, especially if you're not practicing it. However, there is another way to get a surefire dash cancel every single time, which you actually saw twice in the Java versus Sandstorm clips, and this is actually something that Sandstorm mentioned in his movement guide, which I'll link in the description, of course, which is if you burn your dodge, you get a perfect dash cancel every single time if you just literally spam your movement options like this. You get it perfect every single time because, of course, you don't have a dodge, so the only thing that your character is allowed to do is get a dash cancel off the platform, like that. I just got it perfect twice in a row and I didn't even time it. I was literally spamming my trigger. And this is actually something you saw in the third clip, the second clip of Sandstorm versus Java, where Sandstorm hit him with a string, and since there was a platform here, Java dodged down to go under the wall and be under the safety of the platform, but since he doesn't have a dodge anymore, he actually got a perfect platform cancel upwards and did a hammer sidelight to approach him and punish Sandstorm's whiff delight. And he actually did this again in the second clip, which is the first clip of him versus Sandstorm, in which he used a dodge. I'm pretty sure he did a dash jump, dodge back, wasted his dodge, got a perfect dash jump cancel because he has no dodge into a reverse air. And although he didn't hit the reverse air, it doesn't really matter because it forced Sandstorm to use a dodge, which put more pressure on him because now that he doesn't have a dodge, he can get a really easy string on him if he manages to catch another move. Another way that you can use platform cancels are by baiting your opponent. If your opponent is standing right here, you can do a quick dash jump cancel like this and to slide off the platform like that. into a Sair. You can do a like this, get a platform cancel, go back, forward, and then like that. You can do basically any time you can get these platform cancels off, you really should be going for them because they are super unreactable. I mean, unless you're being really predictable about it, but that's a whole nother problem. Another really good place to use this is on the edge. If you're edge guarding somebody and they're like just stalling, they're sharking you on the wall, they don't want to come back up, you don't even have to platform cancel this. You can literally just jump up to the platform, and now that you're up here, your opponent will think, oh, it's safe for me to come back to stage. They'll come back up. You do a quick dash forward, dash back off the platform, Sair, and kill them. And even if you're just standing on the edge here and your opponent is actually coming up, a lot of times the most optimal thing to do is just to endlight them back. But if they have a dodge and you've been doing that the whole match, a lot of times they'll adapt to that. So a good mix-up to them coming back up to stage, and instead of endlighting them, you can do a platform cancel and dash forward, dash back Sair, which actually catches the dodge because it takes us slightly longer. And one final use for platform canceling is you can just use it to keep your fingers warm. I mean, like, I'm not the best at it, but I do practice this a lot, and it's really good for keeping your fingers warm in between stocks. I think that's one of the main reasons that people take a lot of damage after the stock, is because people underestimate how fast your fingers can cool down. I mean, think about it. Your fingers are much smaller muscles than something like your leg or your arms, and so because of that, they can cool down really quickly. I've noticed that if you kill somebody and then you start to go on autopilot a little bit, my fingers feel a little bit stiff in between stocks. So it's important to always keep them moving. Practicing these platform cancels are really good in between stocks because, one, it just looks really cool, and also it's really good for keeping your fingers warm. This is something that's not super important, but if you notice, if you're like me, like your fingers cool down extremely quickly and you have a tendency to autopilot after stocks, especially after getting a big lead, this is really good for just keeping in the zone and maintaining your lead.
Alright guys, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did making it, and I hope you learned something. And one more thing before we head out for the night. If you liked my content and you can see yourself watching me in the future, I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribed. According to my YouTube analytics, only about 9% of you guys watching my videos are actually subscribed, so it would greatly help me if you could hit that red button right next to my name. Remember, it's completely free. If you don't like my content later down the road, you can always unsubscribe, no hard feelings. But yeah, it would greatly help me. These guides take forever to make, and I just want to know that my work is going towards good causes. Anyway, I kept you guys here for long enough. Again, I hope you enjoyed, I hope you learned something, and I hope you have a great night. Bye.